Smoke filled the air, thick and dark. The battlefield was silent now. But the ground still burned. Flames licked at the broken machines and torn bodies. Once, this place was a green valley. But now, it looked like the end of the world. Logan Pierce. A human soldier walked slowly through the wreckage. His helmet was cracked, his shoulder bleeding, and his legs weak from running. But he didn't stop. He was searching. Not just for his squad, but for something to hold on to. The war had gone on too long. Humans and Thalari alien warriors with silver skin and glowing eyes had fought over planets. Honor and control. No one even remembered who fired first anymore. Only death remained as Logan moved closer to a fallen ship. He heard a sound, a soft cry, like a wounded animal. He raised his rifle, heart pounding, but what he saw next made him freeze. There, pinned under the wreckage, was a Thalari woman. Her silver skin was burned in places, and her long white hair was tangled and dirty. Her armor was broken, and a dark blue liquid oozed from a wound on her side. But even in pain, she looked proud and furious. Logan stepped closer, weapon ready. She bared her teeth, whispering in her language. He didn't understand the words, but the message was clear. She would not beg. She would die as a warrior queen. Then he saw her eyes roll back, her head fall to the side. She was losing too much blood. He looked around. No one else was coming. No medics, no reinforcements, no friends, just him and her. For a long moment, Logan stood still. This alien woman, this queen of his enemies, had likely ordered the deaths of his people. She could be dangerous if she woke. But he didn't move to finish her. Instead, he dropped his rifle. He knelt beside her and checked her breathing. Shallow, but still alive. What the hell am I doing? He whispered. He looked toward the mountains, far away in the distance. Maybe 30 miles to safety, maybe more. The terrain was broken, burned, and full of patrols. But he made his choice with a grunt. Logan lifted her into his arms. She was surprisingly light, but her armor was hot against his skin. He wrapped her in his tattered coat and began to walk. Each step was heavy. The ground was rough, full of metal debris and ash. The wind blew sharp dust into his eyes. She stirred once, groaning. Her hand weakly gripped his collar. You? Human, she whispered. You're my prisoner now. He almost laughed. Even now, she tried to command. No, he said quietly. I'm the one carrying you. Her grip faded, and she fell silent again. Logan kept walking. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He didn't even know if he'd survive the night. But something inside him, maybe something broken, or something still human, refused to let her die alone in the dirt. Hours passed. He reached a rocky ridge, found a shaded corner, and laid her down gently. He opened a small water pouch and lifted her head. She didn't resist this time. She drank slowly, blinking up at him, confused. Why? She asked. Voice rough and soft. Why save me? Logan looked at her. He saw more than just an alien face now. He saw someone wounded, scared, and maybe lost. Because I can, he replied simply. Because it's the right thing. She stared at him in silence. Then her eyes closed again. This time without fear. Far above, a pair of alien drones scanned the sky on the horizon. A human patrol moved slowly. If either found them, there would be no mercy. But for now, it was quiet. Just a soldier, a queen, and 30 miles of dangerous land between them and safety. Logan pulled his coat tighter around her. He whispered, You're not dying here, not on my watch. And then he stood up, ready to carry her once more. The road ahead was long, but he had already taken the first step, and she, the broken queen, was now his responsibility. The sun was rising behind the hills, but Logan didn't stop. He had carried Queen Vela through the night And now the hard part began. 30 miles of broken land, burned forests, and roving patrols stood between them and safety. Each step pulled at the wounds in his legs. Each breath felt like fire in his lungs. But he didn't let go. The alien queen lay quiet in his arms, her silver skin pale and cold, once feared and powerful. She now looked small, almost fragile. Logan couldn't believe he was risking his life for her. But something inside told him this was the right thing. As the day grew hotter, he stopped near a crumbled stone arch. The ruins were silent, covered in old alien carvings. He laid her down and gave her water again. This time, her eyes opened slowly. They were sharp and full of suspicion. "You?" she said with effort. "You should have left me." "Yeah, probably," Logan muttered, wiping sweat from his face. "But here we are." She stared at him, trying to understand. He was a human, her enemy. He had every reason to hate her, and yet he carried her like a wounded comrade. "Are you trying to use me?" she asked, her voice shaking. He shook his head. "No, I just didn't want to watch someone die." She blinked slowly, then turned her head, as if ashamed they didn't speak for a while. The wind moved through the ruins, whispering across the broken stones. When Logan stood to continue, she surprised him. "Put me down," she said. "I can walk." "You sure?" "No," she replied, "but I won't be dead weight." With his help, she stood, leaning heavily on him. Her legs shook, but she stayed upright. For the next few miles, they walked together. Step by step, she stumbled. He caught her. He limped. She steadied him. It wasn't fast, but it was movement. It was survival along the way. They passed the remains of battles. A crashed human fighter jet burned the Lari banners. Helmets cracked and abandoned. Each piece told a story of death, but also of how little all of it mattered now. As they reached a dry riverbed, they stopped to rest again. Logan handed her a protein bar from his ration pack. She sniffed it, then bit it carefully. Her face twisted in disgust. "Humans eat this?" she asked, horrified. He chuckled. "Only when we want to suffer." She looked at him, her lips twitching. "Was that?" Almost a smile. "You're strange for a soldier," she said. "You carried me, fed me, and you joke." "You're strange for a queen," he replied. "You haven't tried to kill me once today." She looked away, her voice low. "I don't know who I am anymore." The honesty surprised him. He sat beside her, staring up at the orange sky. "We were taught your kind were monsters," she whispered. "So were we," Logan said. But they never said monsters would carry each other through hell. A silence passed between them, heavy, but not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence where two people start to understand each other. Then, a sound. A low hum in the distance. Scout drones. Logan stood fast, pulling her behind a broken pillar. The drone passed above. Scanning the area with a red beam, Logan held his breath, pressing Vela against the stone. She didn't resist. In fact, she placed her hand on his chest to steady herself. The drone moved on. They stayed still a while longer before finally breathing out. "You know how to move like us," she said, impressed. "Watched enough of your kind during the war." He answered, picked up a few things. She nodded slowly, for the first time. She didn't seem like a queen or a soldier, just a tired woman trying to survive that night. They found shelter inside a half-buried alien transport pod. Logan built a small fire, careful not to let the smoke rise. Sat close, arms wrapped around herself. He noticed her shivering and offered her half of his blanket. She took it without a word. Then she looked at him again, longer this time. "Do all humans show kindness to enemies?" "No," Logan said, "but I'm not like all humans." She stared at the fire, her voice soft. "If we had met before the war, do you think we could have been friends?" He looked at her silver face glowing in the firelight. I don't know, he said honestly. But maybe, after this. She closed her eyes, leaning her head against the wall of the pod. For the first time, she didn't look like she was preparing for death. She looked like she might finally rest, and Logan, watching her sleep, felt something shift inside him too. Not love, not yet, but a crack in the wall between them, and that was enough. For now. The sky turned dark fast. Heavy clouds gathered, glowing with strange green light. A storm was coming, not a normal one, but something left behind by alien war machines. Logan looked up and cursed under his breath. He knew these storms. The acid rain would melt skin, and the wind could peel armor like paper. We need shelter, he said quickly. Queen Vela didn't argue. She was still too weak to walk fast, but she moved as best she could. Together, they pushed through broken trees and burned grass. Soon, Logan spotted a cave hidden behind a twisted boulder. It was narrow, but deep enough to hide them from the storm. As the first drops began to fall, sizzling where they hit the ground, Logan helped Vela inside. She collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. Logan pulled off his wet coat and tossed it aside. Then he knelt and checked her side wound. It was worse than before. The movement had reopened it. You're bleeding again, he said. Voice tight. She looked down but said nothing. Logan took a deep breath, opened his small med kit, and began cleaning the injury. Vela winced, but didn't pull away. Her skin shimmered slightly under the heat of his touch. He tried not to notice. The wind screamed outside, shaking the stone walls inside. Logan used dry sticks and an old power cell to spark a small fire. The flames crackled, warm and golden. For the first time in days, it felt almost safe. Vela sat up. Watching him from the shadows, her silver skin glowed in the firelight, making her look like a spirit from another world. You know how to survive, she said quietly. Logan smiled tiredly. Not well, he replied, but long enough. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the storm eat the world outside. Then, to his surprise, Vela spoke again. When I was a child, I was told humans lived in caves like this. That you were beasts, filthy and stupid. And what do you think now? Logan asked. Amused, she paused, then answered, I think we were wrong. He nodded slowly, staring into the fire. You ever see Earth? No, she said. Just files and pictures. Then let me tell you, he said, voice soft. There's a place near where I grew up, a lake so clear you can see the stars in it at night. Sometimes I'd go there just to sit and breathe. She closed her eyes, listening. It sounds peaceful it was, he said, before the war. They didn't speak for a long time after that. The storm outside raged louder, but inside, the quiet felt heavier. Deeper, Vela opened her eyes again and studied him. You could have left me to die, she whispered. You should have. I know, he said. But I didn't. Why? He looked at her. Truly looked. The proud alien queen now sat wrapped in a blanket beside a human fire. Her eyes full of confusion and pain. Because you were alive, he answered simply. And I've seen too much death. She said nothing, but her hand moved slightly. It rested beside his, not touching, but close. Outside, the acid rain slowed, turning to a soft hiss. Inside, the fire glowed warm, and something strange happened. Vela began to hum. It was low, almost too soft to hear. A melody he didn't know, in a language he couldn't understand, but it was beautiful and full of sadness. What is that? Logan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. A mourning song, she replied, for those who died before they had a chance to live. Logan's throat tightened. He had lost friends too. Some never even got to go home. I'm sorry, he said. She nodded, eyes glowing softly in the dark. You carry a lot, human, she said. Too much, so do you. he replied. The fire crackled between them in the quiet of the cave. They were no longer queen and soldier, no longer enemies, just two souls who had seen too much pain. As the night deepened, Vela shifted closer, not touching him, not yet, but close enough to feel the warmth of his presence. Logan leaned back against the wall, exhausted, his body ached, his heart was heavy. But for the first time since the war began, he didn't feel alone. And as Vela rested her head near his shoulder, eyes slowly closing, he felt something inside him soften. Not surrender, but understanding. Outside, the storm faded. But inside, something new had begun to grow. Not peace, not yet, but maybe. Hope. The morning after the storm was quiet, too quiet. Even the birds had stopped singing. Logan felt it first, that uneasy stillness in the air. He stood at the cave entrance, squinting through the fog. Something wasn't right. His instincts screamed it. Behind him, Queen Vela stirred. She had rested well, but the tension in Logan's body woke her instantly. She watched him closely, then rose to her feet. Still weak, but alert. "What is it?" she asked softly. "Drones," he replied, pointing toward a blinking light in the distance. "Scouts, probably Thaleri. Maybe even human." She moved beside him and narrowed her eyes. "That model's one of ours," she said grimly. "They're scanning for survivors." Logan's face hardened. "So they're looking to finish the job." Vela didn't argue. Her people would not forgive failure. A fallen queen was a threat, or worse, an embarrassment. Logan quickly packed what little they had. "We need to move," he said. Now, slipped into the woods, moving low and fast. Logan knew the terrain well. This part of the continent had once been surveyed for human colonies, but now it was just a graveyard of old dreams. Vela walked with more strength than before, but still leaned on him when the ground turned rough. They moved in silence, the forest thick around them. Logan kept checking the skies, listening for that dreaded humming sound. By mid-morning, they reached an open field. The path through it would cut travel time in half, but it was exposed, too risky. Vela crouched beside him, examining the area. "There's a scanner tower nearby," she said. "We used to hide them under stone to catch human movement." Logan raised a brow. "You set traps here? We set traps everywhere," she replied coldly. "But I can help you avoid them." He nodded, even if he didn't trust her fully. She was more useful alive than dead. They skirted the field's edge, hiding behind trees and fallen ships at one point. Logan stepped too close to a small rise, and the ground beeped. A buried sensor lit up red. "Stop," Vela hissed. Grabbing his arm, she knelt, reached beneath the soil, and pulled out a thin crystal rod. She snapped it in half, and the red light faded. "You'd have had drones on us in seconds," she said. "Remind me to thank you later." He muttered, heart still racing as they moved again. A sudden sound made them freeze. Boots, marching, coming fast. Logan pulled Vela behind a thick root wall and drew his rifle. She pressed herself against the bark beside him, eyes wide. Then they saw them human soldiers. 5 in total, heavy armor, black visors, and weapons ready. They were scanning the area, but their language told Logan something worse. "Recon Squad Eco 7, said one voice. "Last ping came from this direction." "That's my unit," Logan whispered. "They're looking for me." Vela glanced at him, unsure. "You want to go to them?" He hesitated. His people. His chance at rescue, but then he looked at her. The bruises, the blood, the silent trust she had placed in him. "I can't," he said. "If they see you, they'll shoot first." "They should," she said bitterly. "I deserve it." "No," he said firmly. "You don't," before she could speak again. One soldier turned toward their direction. He raised a scanner, and the beam swept dangerously close. Logan held his breath, ready to fire if needed. But then a sudden rumble shook the earth. a patrol drone. Massive and loud, buzzed over the treetops. The human squad turned to face it, confused. It was the Larry Tech, fast and heavily armed. "What the hell is that doing here?" one soldier yelled. The drone opened fire. Scattering the squad, Logan grabbed Vela and ran. They sprinted through the undergrowth, dodging branches and leaping over roots. Blaster fire roared behind them. "Why would your drone fire on your people?" Logan shouted as they ran. "It's not mine." Vela replied, panting. "It's rogue, damaged, or corrupted." They reached a small ravine and slid down into it. There, hidden under vines, was a broken Thalari pod. "In here," Vela urged. Logan followed. The pod just big enough for them to hide. Inside, the pod smelled of rust and ash. But it was quiet, safe, for now. Logan breathed hard, trying to calm down. Beside him, Vela clutched her side. The run had reopened her wound again. He tore off a piece of his sleeve and pressed it to the injury. She winced, but didn't pull away. "You're bleeding again?" he whispered. "So are you," she said, touching a cut near his eye. They looked at each other, not as soldier and queen, not as enemies, but as survivors. "You're a good fighter," she said quietly. "So are you," he replied. She leaned her head against the wall and closed her eyes. "We're being hunted from both sides," she whispered. Logan nodded, "But we're still alive." And as the drone passed overhead and the chaos echoed above, the pod stayed silent, holding two people who should have killed each other, but instead had chosen to survive together. The broken pod was dark, but not silent, outside. They heard distant voices and metal boots scraping over rocks. The Thalari drone had vanished, but now both human and alien squads were searching. Logan sat with his back against the curved pod wall, eyes scanning every flicker of movement. His rifle rested across his lap, hands steady despite the pain. Vela lay beside him. Her breathing shallow. She had lost more blood than he thought, and her skin had turned a dull gray. "You need help," Logan whispered. "You're dying," she gave him a tired smile. "I've been dying since the moment you found me." "Don't say that," he muttered, ripping another strip from his shirt to wrap her side. Her fingers weakly caught his wrist. "You've done enough, human," she said softly. "Let me go." He shook his head. "Not happening." Vela's eyes fluttered shut again. Logan reached into his pack and pulled out a last dose stim injector. It was designed for humans, but maybe, just maybe, it would help. He hesitated, then pressed it against her arm. The liquid hissed into her veins. A moment later, she gasped, eyes snapping open, her body trembling. "By the stars," she hissed. "What was that?" "Something that might keep you alive a few more hours," Logan replied, trying to stay calm. "Don't waste it." The stim worked fast. Her color returned slightly, and her breathing steadied. She tried to sit up, but groaned, holding her side. "We can't stay here," she said. "They'll find us soon." Logan nodded. He helped her up, and together they left the pod, slipping back into the forest. They moved slower now, but the urgency was stronger. As the trees grew thinner, the ground opened into a ravine with jagged rocks and a narrow stream. It was dangerous, but it would lead them closer to the edge of the combat zone. Midway down the slope, Logan slipped, falling hard onto his side. His leg twisted under him. He shouted in pain, rolling to one side. "Logan," Vela called, panic in her voice. She dropped beside him, hands hovering unsurely. "I'm fine." He grunted, trying to stand. He wasn't. His ankle was badly sprained, maybe worse. Now he was the one who couldn't walk. Vela stared at him, then looked back toward the trees. "We don't have time," she said. "You'll have to leave me," Logan said through clenched teeth. Vela didn't respond. Instead, she turned around and crouched, her back facing him. "What are you doing?" he asked, confused. "You?" "Carried me," she said. "Now it's my turn." Logan blinked. "You'll collapse." "I'd rather collapse carrying you than leave you here," she snapped. He hesitated, then climbed onto her back as gently as he could. She groaned under the weight, stumbled, but didn't fall. Together, they moved down the ravine, each step a test of pain and willpower. The sky above was growing darker again, not from weather, but from ships. A small skirmish had begun. In the distance, fire and smoke lighting up the clouds. They reached the bottom of the ravine, where an old Thalari escape tunnel lay half buried. Vela led them inside, the walls glowing faintly with alien markings. Inside, she collapsed against the wall, Logan still on her back. They slid to the ground together, breathless and shaking. For a while neither spoke. Then Logan chuckled, low and rough. "Remind me never to underestimate you again." "You already did," she said, smiling weakly. "And now your pride is broken along with your leg." They both laughed, real tired. Laughter in the middle of blood, pain, and war. It felt almost like peace after resting. Vela pulled out a small device hidden in her armor. It blinked softly, pulsing green. "What's that?" Logan asked. "A location beacon," she said. "Not for warships, but for healers. It transmits a distress code used only by non-combat medical units. You've had this the whole time." "I didn't trust you before," she admitted. "But now, I want you to live." The light blinked faster. She smiled at him, fingers brushing his hand. "If they answer, they'll come without weapons, just medics. And if they don't," he asked, "then we crawl." She said simply, "Together, eh?" Silence fell between them, deeper than before. Logan looked at her face, bruised, scarred, but shining with strength. "I thought you were just another enemy," he whispered. "And now?" "And now you're the only reason I'm still breathing," she replied, outside. The distant engines grew louder. Ships were coming. They didn't know whose yet, but they were ready. Side by side, broken but alive, two warriors who had carried each other through hell, now waited for whatever came next. Asterisk, the blinking beacon glowed steady now, faint at first, then brighter. A signal answered. Vela watched it silently, her expression hard to read. Logan sat beside her, leg wrapped and stiff, but his rifle still resting across his lap. "Someone's coming," she said softly. He looked at her, friend or foe. She didn't answer right away. "It depends who gets here first." They waited in the old escape tunnel, the walls humming quietly. The carved alien patterns pulsed like veins, the tunnel still alive somehow. Minutes felt like hours. Then, a faint rumble above. Engines. Logan reached for his weapon, but Vela placed a hand over his. "Let me speak first," she whispered. He nodded, unsure, but willing to trust her. A soft hiss echoed through the tunnel as a small craft landed above. The floor vibrated with each pulse of its engines. Then footsteps, light, fast, disciplined. Logan stood slowly. Leaning on the wall for support, Vela walked ahead of him. Her spine straight, her chin raised, even half broken. She carried herself like royalty from the shadows. 3 Thalari stepped in, medics, unarmed, but cautious. Their eyes widened when they saw her. "High Queen Vela," one whispered, dropping to one knee. "Rise," she said coldly. "There's no throne here." They stood, shocked, eyes flicking between her and Logan. You live." One said, "We thought I survived because of him." She interrupted. "A human." The medics looked at Logan like he was a ticking bomb. One of them stepped closer, scanning her wounds. "We must return to the capital." "Ship immediately." "No," she said sharply. "You will bring a medic shuttle here unarmed and send word to the human side." They froze. "Queen, you are ordering communication with the enemy." "I'm not ordering," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "I'm stating what will happen. The medics looked confused, torn between protocol and fear. Vela stepped forward, her body weak but her voice steady. "I've walked beside death," she said. "I've bled beside a man who should have been my enemy. He carried me through fire. And I carried him when he fell." She turned to Logan, then back to them. "This war must end." The room fell silent. Then one of the medics spoke softly. "We will do as you say." They left, returning to the ship above. Vela turned back to Logan and sat beside him again. "You didn't have to speak for me," he said quietly. "You could have left. I could have." She agreed. "But I didn't." He looked at her for a long time. Something in her had changed. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was choice. Hours passed, and finally, another ship arrived. This one smaller. White, with no weapons, a human flag painted on its side. Two humans stepped out, medics in light armor, weapons holstered but not drawn. Logan raised a hand. "I'm Sergeant Logan Pierce," he said. The medics stared at him, not with suspicion, but with surprise. "You were marked as KIA." One said, "We assumed you were dead." "Almost was," he replied, glancing at Vela. "But she didn't let me die." The two sides stood there, awkward but calm. A fragile piece hanging in the air like morning fog. Then one of the human medics stepped forward. "We'll patch you both up," he said. "No questions right now." Vela nodded once. She let them treat her wounds without protest. Logan watched her the whole time. Later, they sat side by side again, watching the sun rise through the broken forest. Logan turned to her. "So, what now?" She didn't answer at first. Then she reached into her armor and pulled out a silver pendant, shaped like a star wrapped in flame. "This is the mark of the royal bond," she said. "It's given only once to one person. For one lifetime." Logan frowned. "I'm not the Larry, I know," she whispered. "That's why it matters." She placed the pendant in his hand. "I want peace," she said. "But more than that, I want you." His eyes widened. "Vela, I'm just a soldier, and I was just a queen," she said. "But we carried each other through war. That means more than blood or crowns." He looked down at the pendant, fingers closing around it slowly. Then he smiled, not with pride, but with something deeper. "You sure?" he asked. "Because if you do this, your people won't understand. They'll learn," she said firmly, "or they'll fall behind." He reached out and touched her hand gently. "Then I'm with you." The sun rose higher, and though war still burned across the stars, in one forgotten place, an enemy queen and a human soldier had made their choice. Not just survival, but something more. The skies above the burned forest were calm now. No gunships, no drones, no fire. Just a quiet wind blowing across cracked soil. Peace, even if temporary, had reached this place. Logan sat by a small stream, washing dried blood from his arms. His leg still hurt, but it was healing. He looked different now, not just in body, but in his eyes. There was a softness there that war hadn't broken. Vela stood a few steps away, barefoot in the grass. She had removed the last of her broken armor, now wearing a simple robe provided by the human medics. The silver pendant she had offered him still hung around his neck. She watched him closely, saying nothing at first. Logan looked up at her. "You've been quiet since they left. They'll send reports to both sides," she said calmly. "And soon, leaders will want to speak with me." "Will they listen?" "They'll have to," she said, "because I will not speak as a queen anymore." Logan tilted his head, curious. "Then who are you now?" Vela walked closer and sat beside him, letting her feet dangle in the cold water. "I'm Vela," she said simply. "A woman who is saved by a human. A woman who no longer believes in thrones built on bones." He didn't answer right away. He watched the water ripple as her hand gently touched his. "In my people's ways," she began softly. There is a ritual. When a Thalari owes their life beyond honor, beyond duty, they may offer a bond, like the pendant. Logan said, touching it. That's part of it. She nodded. But the bond is more than metal, it's a vow. A vow for what? He asked. For partnership, she said, voice calm but deep with emotion, for life, for loyalty, for unity. Logan stared at her. You're asking me too? Be your mate, yes, she said. Not as a trophy, not as a symbol, but because I've walked through fire with you, I want to walk through peace with you too. He chuckled nervously. Vela, we're from different planets, our hearts still beat the same, she replied. And yours kept beating for me when mine wanted to stop. Silence fell, heavy and real. Then Logan stood slowly, his leg shaking a little. He took a deep breath and faced her. I'm not a hero, he said. I don't wear medals, I don't give speeches. I just did what I thought was right. That's why I choose you, she said, rising to her feet. Because you didn't save me for power or glory. You saved me because I was a life worth saving. He reached for her hand, their fingers locking tightly. And you carried me when I couldn't walk, he whispered. So maybe we already belong to each other. Her eyes shimmered with emotion. Then she stepped forward, slowly, and pressed her forehead to his, in Thalari culture. That was more intimate than a kiss. It was a declaration, a silent promise. Logan closed his eyes and stayed there, breathing her in, not as an enemy, not as a queen, but as someone he trusted. Behind them, the forest rustled gently. A new growth was beginning to rise from the ash, small green sprouts poking through scorched earth. Nature didn't care about wars. It only knew how to begin again, days later. They stood before both councils, human and Thalari, not as captives, not as symbols, but as witnesses. Vela spoke first. I was your queen, she said to her people, but I was wrong. I taught you that humans were monsters. That peace was weakness, but I found strength in mercy. She looked to Logan. He carried me for 30 miles. She said, and never once asked for anything in return. That is the strength I now believe in. The room was silent. Not angry, not clapping, just stunned. A queen had bowed her head, not in shame, but in truth. Logan stepped forward. I fought this war because I was told to, he said, but carrying her changed me. Not because she's royalty, but because she's someone worth knowing. He looked across the room. Human soldiers, Thalari warriors, leaders and enemies. Maybe it's time we carry each other. Some scoffed, others whispered. But no one stopped them when they walked out hand in hand, back under the open sky, far from war rooms and speeches. Vela turned to Logan. Still sure you want this? He smiled. I walked through death with you, he said. I'll walk through life with you too. She reached up and placed her palm on his chest. The bond seal glowed, not burning, but warm, a living symbol of everything they had survived, and as the stars rose behind them, the soldier and the queen became something new. Not enemies, not heroes, but mates, bound not by blood or orders, but by choice.